بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
ألف لام ميم تنزيل الكتاب لا ريب فيه من رب العالمين.
So, Alhamdulillah, we get another opportunity to come together to study the tafsir in Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. We will begin with the dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidil Mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So today we will be doing a small introduction. Okay, introduction to tafsir, introduction to Surah Sajdah. Okay, and we will briefly go over the isti'adha and the basmala. Okay, and then tomorrow, inshallah, we intend to begin the tafsir of Surah As-Sajdah. I was listening in on the tajweed part, and it was excellent. Jazakallah khair. Salma, Allah Mubarak, is very good. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so first of all, why are we studying the tafsir? Okay, the reason for studying tafsir of the Quran. Okay, why is it not enough just to learn to read it, to learn to perfect the letters? Why do we need to study the tafsir? Who can tell me? Most of the sisters here that you are in our tafsir class, so I know you'll know the answer, inshallah.
Because it's not enough, because we need to understand what we're reading. And the understanding comes from tafsir.
Yes, you need the understanding of the Quran. Why do we need the understanding of the Quran?
We can apply it in our life.
Yes,
That's
Jazakallah khair. Okay. Allah said in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, okay, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Okay, that this is a book that is, there is no doubt in it, absolutely no doubt in it. And it is a guidance for the people of taqwa. Okay, the people who strive to do what it is that Allah has said to do and to stay away from what He has said to stay away from. Okay, the reason why we study tafsir is because it's through studying the tafsir that we can extract this guidance. Okay, the guidance that is in the Quran, in order to extract it, in order to be able to reflect upon the lessons and the light and the guidance that Allah has given us in the Quran, we need to be able to understand it. We need to be able to look at the ayat and understand what it is that Allah intends in the ayat. Okay, and the way that we do that is through looking at the tafsir or different tafasir, looking at the meaning, looking at what Allah intends, and then through looking at the tafsir, we can then extract the lessons from those, from the words, from the letters, from the words in the Quran, from the ayat in the Quran. So before we do that, a quick introduction. Okay, so what is the Quran? Who can tell me what is the Quran?
Word of Allah.
Yes, it is the uncreated speech of Allah. Okay, it is the only thing that we have in the dunya with us that is uncreated. Okay, everything else around us is created. The only thing that we have with us that is uncreated is the Quran. And because it is the speech of Allah, Allah is perfect in and of Himself. Therefore, His speech is also perfect. So the only thing that we have with us in the dunya that is absolutely perfect is the Quran. Okay, along with the fact that it is the speech of Allah, other parts that define to us what is the Quran is the fact that it is revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, okay, through Jibreel alayhi salam. This helps us to differentiate between the other revelations. Okay, this was specific to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Quran abrogates all of the other revelations that came before. Okay, the Torah, the Injil, the Zabur, the books that we know about and the books that we don't know about. Okay. Also, the Quran, part of the definition is that it is preserved. Okay, the Quran is preserved, and we know that it is protected, it is guarded. Okay, Allah has kept it, subhanallah, to the letter, to the haraka. Okay, the small pauses that we see in the Quran, even those have been preserved. Okay, and this is through Allah. Allah has preserved the Quran, made it easy for us to memorize and to retain and to study. Okay, so this is something that is specific to the Quran. The other books didn't have this attribute. Okay, Allah left it in the hands of the people, and they were left to preserve it, and it was not preserved. But the preservation of the Quran, Allah has put on Himself. Okay, it is also a miracle. Okay, it is beyond human ability to replicate the Quran, and we will go more into this as we study the first few ayat of Surah As-Sajdah, because it comes up. Okay, the Quran is also the only book that when it is recited, okay, it is ibadah. Okay, it is 10 rewards or more for each letter. SubhanAllah. Okay, the Quran was revealed in Arabic. Okay, and it is mutawatir, which means it was narrated by a huge number of people to a huge number of people, so with such precision, such accuracy, that it is impossible for it to be a lie. Okay, so it is mutawatir, impossible for it to be a lie. Okay, because we are studying tafsir, we will look at quickly the definition of tafsir. Tafsir is, okay, when the Quran is explained. Okay, when we explain the Quran, or the Quran is explained, i.e. the words, the meanings, okay, the manners, the rulings, these are explained through the tafsir. Okay, so when we hear things like, what Allah means by this is this, okay, this is tafsir. So we understand what Allah intends. Okay, there is a difference between tafsir and lessons that we take from the Quran. Okay, tafsir is to explain the meaning. The lessons that we learn from them, these are when we reflect. Okay, when we reflect or we think, we contemplate, and we take benefits from the ayat or the group of ayat. Now, what is so beautiful about Surah As-Sajdah, which Shaykh al-Uthaymeen, he didn't do this with all of his tafsir, okay? But with Surah As-Sajdah, and it will be Shaykh al-Uthaymeen's tafsir that we'll be using predominantly, okay? And if you have been to the other tafsir classes in Ramadan, outside of Ramadan, this is mainly what we use, okay? We use Shaykh al-Uthaymeen's tafsir, one, because he does it very well, where he summarizes what a lot of the classical tafsir have in their tafsir, and he breaks it down for the normal person, okay, for us who maybe we don't know the language, or we haven't studied tafsir before, or this is the first time we have come to study this surah. Okay, so he breaks it down for us in a way that we can understand. But then he also brings things that will affect the heart. And I have seen this when we study Juz Amma with QSL. We are now studying Juz 27, and he does this. He many times brings things that will affect the hearts of the people. Okay, which is the purpose of the Quran. Okay, is to bring light and joy and contentment and guidance to the heart. Okay, so we will be using Shaykh al-Uthaymeen's tafsir, but what he has done specifically with Surah Sajdah is that he explains the ayat and then he lists the benefits. Okay, he gives us a list of benefits for each ayah, or each maybe 2 or 3 ayat that come together. He lists the benefits for us. So this will be like the lessons that are learnt from the ayah. So this is different between the tafsir and then the lessons. And with Shaykh Uthaymeen's tafsir, we will get both. Okay, inshallah. From the benefits of studying tafsir, now there are many, and we don't have time to list all of them. Okay, but I will list a few. Allah said in the Quran, هُوَ الَّذِي يُنَزِّلُ عَلَى عَبَدِهِ آيَاتٍ بَيِّنَاتٍ. It is He who sends down clear ayat to His slave, okay, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Why? لِيُخْرِجَكُم مِّنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ, so that He can take you out from the darkness and into the light, okay, of knowledge, of guidance, of knowing the truth from the falsehood. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُمْ لَرَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. And this is from Allah being kind and merciful to his slaves. The fact that he sent the Quran, the fact that the Quran is a means of guidance is from Allah being kind and merciful towards his creation. Okay? The Quran gives a person perspective. Okay? The Quran gives a person direction. Through the knowledge that we get from the Quran, it reminds us and gives us the reason for why we are here and what we should be doing. And the Quran constantly reminds us of this. The Quran will also give us firmness, okay, steadfastness, uprightness. And this is what we make dua for every time you recite your Surah Al-Fatiha. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, that you want to be on the path of uprightness and steadfastness and firmness. The Quran is what will give us this, bi'idhnillah, okay? Now, tafsir is not something that can be done by just anybody, okay? And by doing the class, I'm not claiming to know how to do tafsir, which is why I mentioned already that I refer to Shaykh al-Uthaymeen, Ibn Uthaymeen's tafsir, okay? The tafsir we can take from the scholars. It is not something that we can do ourselves. What we can do is we can reflect and we can take lessons. And that's why I do like to have some sisters in the Zoom class, because from their reflections we can benefit. Okay, they will sometimes share their reflections or what they have taken from the ayah, and we can benefit from that. The main tafsir that I will be using, a few of them, okay, Shaykh al-Uthaymeen's will be the one that I will take the most from. And then Shaykh As-Sa'di, sometimes I will take benefits from his tafsir. And he was the teacher of Shaykh al-Uthaymeen. Okay, please do look into these names if you want to know more about them. I will also use Tafsir Ibn Kathir as sometimes if I need clarification for something, then I will use Tafsir Ibn Kathir, or sometimes Tafsir Ibn Kathir will bring narrations that some of the other ones don't, and we can benefit from them. Okay, what we aim to do is to go through each ayah in detail so that we have a good understanding of this surah, inshallah. Okay, just to give you a little bit of an introduction to Surah As-Sajdah itself. Before I go on to that, does anybody have any questions? And to let me know if I'm talking too fast. I'm very aware of the time, so I'm trying to fit it all in. Any questions, or everybody's okay?
Assalamu alaikum. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Okay, no problem. Okay, so
Assalamu alaikum. Can I just ask, can you explain more what mutawatir? When you said
yes,
there was a lot of reciters,
yes.
does that mean they all recited the same surah, therefore checked each other
Yeah, so basically,
before it was recorded?
Yeah, so the
I don't know,
surah,
just explain the process, please. Assalamu alaikum.
yeah, no problem, that's fine. Jazakallah khair for the question. I'm sure other people will be wondering the same thing, okay? If I draw it, actually, it's better. So let me do that. If I draw it for you, we get a better understanding. So if I can draw it on this page, I know this is the isti'adha, and I will rub it out, but I will draw it here. Okay, so you can see, okay, the Prophet ﷺ came, okay, and he recited the Quran in front of many, sometimes in front of the Kaaba, sometimes in front of a group of the Sahaba, sometimes in front of a whole army, okay, but the Quran was recited, and it was recited in abundance around the people who were around the Prophet ﷺ, Muslims and non-Muslims, okay. Those who embraced Islam and those who didn't. Those who embraced early and those who embraced later, okay? But the Quran was heard by many. If you imagine, this is a huge group of people, okay? Hundreds, thousands, okay? Huge group of people. And they all pass down the same Quran, okay? The same recitation of the Quran. The understanding of the Quran, okay, passed down to a huge number, okay? Without any contradictions. So no contradictions in what they passed down. They all passed down the same thing, okay? And there were no contradictions. And then this huge number of people passed it down to an even larger group of people, okay? With no contradictions in it. Therefore, okay, it is impossible for it to be a lie. If it was a lie, there would be a mistake here and there and there and here and there, and one person would be saying one thing and another person would be saying another thing, okay? When the police, when they want to find out the truth, okay, they will isolate a person, ask them the same questions, then they will isolate another person who might be involved in the incident and ask the same questions, and then they will check, okay, the consistency in the answers, okay? And then they will know if there is consistency, then it must be true. If there is inconsistencies, then they know someone is lying, okay? In the same way, when something is mutawatir, there are too many that have narrated the same thing for it to be a lie, with no inconsistencies in it. And this is what we have with the Quran, subhanallah, okay? Therefore, it is, we call it mutawatir. Shazia, is that better? Is it more clear?
Oh, yes, Jazakallah khair.
Okay,
Much better.
Okay, I'll just erase all of that. Okay. Now, Surah As-Sajdah is a Makki surah, okay, meaning that it was a surah that was revealed in the Meccan period, which is the time period before the hijrah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, okay, before the Prophet sallallahu moved to Medina, okay, before he moved to Medina sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is the Meccan period. Any Quran that was revealed before the hijrah, whether it was in Mecca or not, is considered a Makki surah. And anything that was revealed after the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina is considered a surah or ayat that are revealed in the Madani period, even if they were revealed back in Mecca later, okay? They are in the Madani period, therefore they are Madani surahs, okay? Everybody's okay with that, yeah? This surah has other names as well as Surah As-Sajdah. Okay, the surah has 30 ayat. We are hoping to do 2 or 3 a day in order to fit it in to the 2 weeks that we have set for the tafsir of this surah. It is also known as Alif Lam Mim Sajdah. Okay, it is known as this, and you will see this mentioned in some of the books of fiqh, some of the ahadith, okay? It is also known as Alif Lam Mim Tanzil, because this is one of the first words that comes after Alif Lam Mim. It is also known as Madaji', okay? And this is because the beds or mattresses, which is what this word means, is mentioned in the surah, okay? Allah talks about those who forsake their beds in order to worship. So it is also called Madaji', okay? The final name that we have for it is Surah Munji'ah, which is a surah that saves or gives salvation, okay? So this is another virtue of Surah As-Sajdah. It has been narrated about Surah As-Sajdah, okay, that the Prophet ﷺ would recite Surah As-Sajdah in the first rak'ah of Fajr on a Friday, okay? In the Jama'ah, he would recite in the first rak'ah of Fajr, Surah As-Sajdah, okay? And in the second rak'ah, he would recite Surah Insan. The explanation behind that, okay, just a short explanation that the Sheikh gave, is that Surah As-Sajdah talks about the believers and their condition and their worship and the state that they should be upon, okay? And then Surah Insan speaks about the reward and what Allah has prepared for the believers. So this is why how they go together. And this is based on a hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, where it was Abu Hurairah who said the Prophet ﷺ used to recite in the Fajr on Fridays Alif Lam Mim Tanzil, which is Surah Sajdah. And then he said Hal Ata Ala Al-Insan, which is Surah As-Sajdah. Okay? And this is something that the Prophet ﷺ did very consistently. Yeah, maybe the odd Friday he wouldn't, but it was something that was done consistently. Why on Jum'ah? Okay, why on Yawm al-Jum'ah do you think he recited these two? I don't expect you to answer that, okay, but I'm just to get us to think, okay, why specifically Jum'ah? The ulama, they have commented on the possible wisdoms behind why the Prophet ﷺ would recite these on that particular day, okay? Jum'ah is the day that Allah created Adam alayhi salam. It was the day that he removed Adam and Hawa from Jannah, okay? It is the day that the hour will be established and the bodies will be resurrected. All of this will happen on Yawm al-Jum'ah, okay? All of these events that I just mentioned are all mentioned in Surah As-Sajdah in detail, okay? The issue of death, the issue of Jannah and Jahannam and the creation, all of these are mentioned in Surah As-Sajdah, and this is one of the wisdoms or one of the possible reasons for why the Prophet ﷺ chose Yawm al-Jum'ah to recite Surah As-Sajdah, okay? One more thing I will mention about Surah As-Sajdah is that it is narrated from Jabir radiallahu anhuma that the Prophet ﷺ would never sleep until he recited Alif Lam Mim Tanzeel, which is Surah As-Sajdah, and also Surah Al-Mulk. Okay, Surah Al-Mulk was recited by the Prophet ﷺ before he would sleep. So before sleeping, the Prophet ﷺ would be reminded of the things that are spoken about in the surahs, showing us that it is important for us to know. You might be somebody who is in the habit of reciting Surah Al-Mulk and Surah As-Sajdah before sleeping. But the Prophet ﷺ would recite it so that he would be reminded of what is in the surahs. And he considered these reminders to be important. So much so that he recited it every day. Okay, every night. For us to also be reminded by this surah and for it to be a source of guidance and admonishment for us, we need to know what is being said. We need to know why did the Prophet ﷺ recite this? We will only know why once we have seen and looked at and reflected upon the meaning, which inshallah we will get to do in these 2 weeks. We will do a light explanation of the Isti'adha and the Basmala before we finish, inshallah. I know that you had some practice reciting it, okay? So if we look at the Isti'adha, Allah mentioned this in the Quran, okay? وَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. When you come to recite the Quran, then say, أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. Seek refuge from Shaitan al-Rajim, okay? So if we look at the meaning quickly, and this will give you an idea of how we will go through the meaning of the ayat in Surah As-Sajdah. We will try to do it word for word as much as we are able, and then give a general explanation of the words and the ayat. So here Allah said, A'udhu, okay, I seek refuge. Well, I'm saying Allah said, but this is something that we are recommended to do in the Quran, and we see it from the Sunnah, okay, that the Prophet ﷺ would do this. I seek refuge billahi, with Allah. Min, from what? Please excuse my writing. I will try to write neater. Those of you who are in my tafsir class, you know my writing is terrible, but I will try to write neater for this Ramadan class, inshallah. I seek refuge with Allah from ash-shaytan ar-rajim. Shaytan, we know, ar-rajim, the one who is outcast. Outcasted, okay? Or he is thrown out, he is repelled, okay? So when we say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, we are seeking assistance from Allah, okay? So that the shaitan is prevented from affecting our worldly affairs as well as our religious affairs. Okay, we are seeking protection with Allah for this so that he can't hinder us, okay? Or prevent us or cause any distractions or laziness within us that takes us away from what will benefit us. Okay, so we seek protection from Allah, from shaitan. We want Allah's help and his assistance in being protected by the shaitan and his whispering and his distracting and his causing us to incline towards certain things. And he will try his level best to distract you from the Quran. Why? Because he knows how much benefit the Quran, the recitation of the Quran, the studying of the Quran will bring you. It will only bring you goodness and blessings and benefit and guidance. And this is what he doesn't want for you. Okay? Now, unfortunately, for many of us, saying isti'adha is just an action that we do on our tongue, okay? But it needs to be an action of the heart. In order for it to be effective, it can't just be a statement on the tongue, okay? It needs to be an action of the heart. When we are seeking refuge with Allah from the shaitan, we need to have belief and trust that Allah will prevent any harm from reaching us, okay? Ibn al-Qayyim, and he describes the isti'adha beautifully. He said, rahimahullah, to flee from the thing that you are afraid of to the one who can protect you from what you are afraid of. Okay, so when you seek refuge, you are fleeing from shaitan, the one that we fear his harm, okay, to the one who can protect us from his harm, and that is Allah. A'udhu billah. Okay. Some of the virtues of isti'adha, okay, one is that it cleans the mouth from any foul speech, okay, anything that maybe is not of benefit to say, okay, it cleans the mouth, it purifies the mouth, and it prepares it to recite the speech of Allah. We don't go from normal speech to reciting Quran. We have isti'adha in between in order to prepare our mouth to recite the Quran. Okay, I will leave it there for isti'adha because of time, but I know that many of you have studied this before. If there are any questions regarding this, then please do ask at the end or ask and we will go through questions on the next day. Okay, inshallah. Then we have the Basmala. Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Okay, meaning in the name of Allah. Okay, so we begin, in the name. The ism means name. In the name of Allah, who is Ar-Rahman, and he is Ar-Rahim. Both these names come from these three letters, okay? Rahima, which means to show mercy, to have mercy, okay? Ar-Rahman is the one who has this vast mercy. He's the owner of this vast mercy, okay? And Ar-Rahim is the one who distributes that mercy, the one who chooses who to distribute the mercy to. Ar-Rahman is all-encompassing mercy that covers both Muslims and non-Muslims, okay? All of creation. Non-Muslims are shown rahmah, okay? They are shown mercy. They have families, they have homes, they have shelter, they have provision, okay? This is what Allah has blessed them with. They enjoy the rahmah of Allah in this life, but they don't get to enjoy the rahmah of Allah in the akhirah. Whereas Ar-Rahim is the one who shows a specific mercy and a special care for the believers, okay, in the dunya and in the akhirah. So like an exclusive type of mercy for the believers in this world and in the akhirah, in the next world, okay? Shaykh Uthaymeen mentions that the Basmala, saying Bismillah Rahman Rahim, is something that comes in between the surahs. It is not actually an ayah of the surah, okay? So the first ayah of Surah As-Sajdah will be Alif Lam Mim, which we will do tomorrow. The Basmala is something that separates the surahs, and it is in the beginning of every surah except Surah At-Tawbah, okay? The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they didn't write the Basmala between Surah Tawbah, and the one that comes before it, Surah Anfal, but they did place a barrier or a line or something to show that there was a separation between the two surahs, but there was no basmala. Okay, and this is from what they learned from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Oopsie daisy. Okay, so I will stop there. We ask Allah to allow us to extract the guidance from these ayat. Okay, from the ayat that we will study in the next 2 weeks. We ask Allah to be able to extract the goodness and the barakah and the guidance from it, for these things to be a reminder to us, and for it to be a means of reviving the iman in our hearts and a means of rectification for our actions. آمين يا رب العالمين. We'll stop there. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.